The discriminant is part of the quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. It's the part that's underneath the square root sign. B squared minus 4ac is the discriminant. And the quadratic formula gives us the roots. The discriminant tells us about the roots. It characterizes the roots for us. And what it does is we need to ask three basic questions. Are the roots real or imaginary? And we can determine that because since it's underneath the square root sign, if it's positive, they're real. If it's negative, they're imaginary. Positive, real, negative, imaginary. Rational or irrational, and again, because it's under a square root sign, if it's a square number like 4, 9, 16, 25, something like that, then it's rational. If it's a non-square like 2, 5, 7, 13, 29, then it's irrational. And equal or unequal, and that comes from the plus or minus that's in front of the square root. And I'll talk more about that when I get into some examples. But those are the three basic questions that we need to ask. Our first example, y equals x squared minus 4x plus 3. We see that a is 1, b is negative 4, and c is positive 3. So if we plug this into the discriminant, b squared would be negative 4 squared minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 3. Negative 4 squared is 16, minus 4 times 1 times 3 is 12. 16 minus 12 is 4. So, is it positive or negative? The answer is obviously that it's a positive number, so that means it is a real. It's going to have real roots. Rational or irrational? Since 4 is a square number, it's rational. And is plus 4 minus 4 the same thing? No, it is not. So that means it is unequal. So we don't know what the roots of this quadratic y equals x squared minus 4x plus 3 are, but we do know that those roots are going to be real, rational, and unequal. Second example, x squared minus 5x plus 5. Again, a is 1 here, b is negative 5, and c is positive 5. So negative 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5. That's going to be a positive 25 minus 20 equals 5. It's positive, so that means the roots are real. But 5 is not a square number, so that means our roots are irrational because the square root of 5 is irrational. If you type it into your calculator, you get a decimal that goes all the way to the edge, and we know it's an irrational decimal. And plus 5 minus 5, not the same thing, so the roots are unequal. Y equals 3x squared plus 6x plus 3. So a is 3, b is 6, and c is 3. That's going to be 6 squared minus 4 times 3 times 3. That's 36 minus, see, 4 times 3 is 12, times 3 is 36, equals 0. Now 0 is considered real. It's considered positive. Square root of 0 is 0, so that's real. And although it's not quite a square number, square root of 0 is 0, so it is considered rational. And plus 0 minus 0 is the same thing, so it is equal. And in fact, that's the only time your roots are going to be equal is when your discriminant is 0. You're going to have equal roots. And the last example, 2x squared minus 3x plus 5, a, b, c. That's negative 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times 5. So that's 9 minus 40 is negative 39. And the fact that it's negative, we know it is imaginary because the square root of a negative is imaginary. And once we know the roots are imaginary, we don't bother to ask the other two questions, whether it's rational or equal. Once it's imaginary, that's it. Problem done.